Today we'll be examining some of the features in the Operation 633D digital stereo mixer. The M-633D is released, and once again TOA has created a new product that's unique for those who demand sound quality and clarity in a small one button operation, which means that just the touch of a button, the M633D automatically overcomes unpleasant reverberance and feedback. So it's able to deliver clear, high articulate sound. This new concept digital stereo mixer is what we refer to as next generation unique, which means you'll not find another product exactly like it on the market. It provides automatic audio adjustment for the push of a button, as we said, and you don't have to be a sound technician in order to operate the M633D. And there's no need for complex PC settings or even to hook a PC up to the unit. Let's take a look at some of the features and benefits of this new product. As we mentioned, it's a stereo mixer equipped with, in this case, 12 input channels. 6 of them are mono inputs, and 3 are stereo inputs. It has 6 output channels, 2 mono, 1 stereo, and 1 stereo recording output. The interesting thing is that you can assign each input signal to 3 output channels individually. You can send, for example, input 1 to mono out 1 or mono out 2 or stereo out, or any combinations of those 3 channels. And that's the case with any of the input channels. We want to look at the feedback suppression. We refer to it as FBS. It's a function that automatically suppresses sudden feedback. It can occur when the person holding the microphone moves around. Maybe they get a little too close to a speaker or speakers, or maybe in that part of the room there is feedback. Now, this feature is available on each mic input channel, and it will suppress that feedback. Also, the automatic resonance control, or the ARC, which is an advanced measurement and processing algorithm, which improves speech intelligibility and also improves speech quality. This is especially important in facilities where there are challenges in the environment. This function also automatically identifies room mode frequency and applies an inverse response curve to compensate for the measured room response. We're going to look a little bit closer at this a little later. So sound reproduction is greatly improved because of the automatic control of this function. Stereo input in the automatic mute switch or auto mute switch, and we notice that that's selectable, and it's automatic because it detects whether it's mono input and then it will automatically adjust. So there's an auto mute switch on the back of the unit and used to turn on or off the automatic mute function. Input sensitivity is switchable to either 10 dB or 46 dB for the mono inputs, and that's for mics, for example. The mono input is capable of supplying phantom power from 24 volt. So that's on inputs 1 to 6. We have automatic clip guard, or ACG, which means that when the input sensitivity is set to either the mic or phantom position, sensitivity is automatically switched as well. And so in the presence of excessive input levels, this prevents sound distortion. Automatic input sensitivity control prevents clipping as well. We have assignment switches located in the front of the unit above the input level control knobs, and these are used to select the output destination to which the signal is to be routed. And the way you do that, you press in the individual switches, either mono 1, mono 2, or stereo output. So this shows those functions. If you notice that the 6 inputs on the front are inputs that can be set for either mic or line input. The switches are above, and there's 3 switches, 1, 2, and stereo or ST, and they're above each of these inputs. And so you can turn those on or off. So we see easy functioning and easy setup of the unit. There is an assignment cover switch over these inputs, whether it's the 6 mic or the 3 stereo inputs, and that prevents tampering. You got it set up, you want to keep it that way. This is sort of a security cover that keeps people from changing things. It also provides a unique writing surface. You can put a label on, identifying where the input is coming from, and helps you to be able to control things. So again, like we mentioned, if you press in an individual switch, that's selecting the output. So you're assigning this mic input to line 1 for output number 1, for example. Or you could send it to output 2 or to stereo. Or you could send it to all 3. The FBS switch, which is right here beside the volume control knob, enables the feedback suppression function. So when you have that pressed in, hold it for 1 second, and that will activate your feedback suppression on that channel. Now you might have one channel on, another channel off, or you may have them all on. There is a light as well just below that switch that indicates when it's on and when it's off. If it's glowing green, then the feedback suppression is on. We also have an input level indicator, and that's right above that switch, if you'll notice. And again, that will glow green when we have a sound level that's appropriate. If it lights red, then that means you're overdriving it, and it will reach the red color when it's 6 dB below clipping level. So it's a little safety feature there. This graph indicates how the signals are assigned. For example, mono in can be assigned to number 1 or number 2 channel going out, and we haven't assigned it to the stereo. Mono in 2, we've assigned to channel 2 out and to stereo, and mono 3, we've just assigned to channel 3. So you can set this up to matrix your signal so that you can get the desired effect you want and send the signal to the destinations that you so desire. This is the stereo mono switch. It's a summing output. So this little switch right here, it outputs the stereo to each channel in the stereo left and right output terminals. And when it's not pressed in, or you can sum them and send it out as the same signal on both channels. For example, this graph indicates. So in the stereo mode, your left input will go to the left output. Right input will go to the right output. In the sum mode, then left and right are combined, and they go out in left and right. So it's no longer stereo. There are assigned areas for labeling the output channels, similar to what we mentioned for the input channels. Also note that stereo 1 input, this one right here, it's a mini plug, and that's the same as our stereo input in the back, stereo input number 1. So you can use either the 3.5 millimeter plug on the front of the unit, or you can use the 2 RCA inputs on the back of the unit for channel 1 stereo input. So here are the stereo inputs in the back of the unit. You'll notice that there are 3 sets of them, labeled 1, 2, and 3. And remember again that number 1 can also be used by the front panel as well. In addition, the outputs for mono 1 and mono 2 and the stereo left and right are at the back, and they're Euroblock connections, whereas the inputs on the stereo are RCA connections, and your recording output are also stereo RCA outputs. Mics can be connected either by a Phoenix block connector, which fit in the connections, or they can be inserted by a 1/4-inch phone jack. Input levels can be selected either by line, mic, or mic with phantom. Both the 1/4-inch and the Phoenix inputs are electronically balanced inside the unit, so you can use either or, but you can't use two mics on the one channel. So this is our stereo input channels, 3 separate RCA inputs, and number 1, as we mentioned before, is internally connected to the 3.5 millimeter connection on the front. So the Phoenix block connectors are used for speaker connections, and that makes it simple because it keeps the wiring organized and you don't have to screw wires directly to the back of the unit. This block diagram from the manual shows the signal flow from analog on this side through the digital processor onto the analog out on the other side. The automatic resonance control and the auto muting is accomplished, and then the signal flows from the digital to the analog. So we have a couple functions on the input side, such as the feedback suppression, and all this processing takes place. Very powerful DSP processor in this unit. Let's look now at the feedback suppression. This is a function that is it's actually built into the unit. It works to suppress feedback automatically, and when there's a feedback occurs, it sets up filters to block that out. It has 6 channels, like we mentioned, and each channel has 7 filters. So you see right there, 7 filters possible to suppress feedback on 6 channels. So it has a total of 42 filters in the unit. Feedback suppression filters are not stored when the power is shut down. The setting data is dumped when you power down, and then when you power up, if feedback suppression is needed, it will also kick in again. However, the feedback suppression function, or the switch that you pressed in to activate the FPS, stays stored or stays engaged when you power down and power up. You don't have to reset that each time. Now we're going to look at the auto resonance control, or the ARC. It's a function that automatically creates a sound field compensation filter to improve sound. And it clarifies things by measuring the inherent acoustic characteristic in architectural spaces. This slide shows the effective sound of the room that can result in poor speech intelligibility and sound quality. So the M-633D analyzed the room by 3 methods. The first, it injects pink noise into the room, and then a little clicking sound, which is an impulse, and then it sweeps through the frequency. The results that it gains from this are computed, and an inverse response curve is stored in the memory to basically make the room sound better. So how do you set it up? Well, first of all, you connect a microphone. And the microphone is normally used on number 1. If you notice there, it's 1, 2, stereo, and ARC. So you connect your microphone to your number 1 input, and you would use the microphones you normally use in the room. It doesn't require a special microphone. And you set the impulse sensitivity selector switch to the appropriate position depending on the microphone to be connected. So you can use a dynamic microphone, which would be mic. You can, let me get to the next slide, which is right here. So this is your ARC. And so you would set it, if it's a dynamic microphone, it would be set in the mic. Or if it requires phantom, you can use the phantom switch. Or if you're using a wireless mic and you're using line level, you set it over to line. So you can use whatever mic you normally would use, and you connect it up, and then you press in the mono 1 assignment switch on the front. And this will assign it to channel number 1 going out. Check to see if the microphone is working properly. Do that by speaking into the microphone. You confirm that the indicator level on the front of the unit lights up green. And then you press this switch, the ARC switch, if I can just go back and show you that. The ARC switch on the front. That's a switch that you press in, and it takes a small screwdriver, press it in, and you hold it for 3 seconds, and that starts the ARC measurement. You release the switch, and it'll begin to flash, and the measurement is taken, as we mentioned, through the 3 methods, and then it's stored in the unit. Now, the ARC filters previously set on the output channel would be updated by any new information. For example, if you want to set a new ARC for channel number 1, it will replace the previous one that you have stored. Now, if you power the unit down and power it up, it'll keep that in storage. However, if you dump the information for channel 1, for example, it'll dump the information that you've stored for other channels as well. So that means that you can set an ARC reading up for channel 1. You can reassign that mic to channel 2 and set up an individual ARC reading. Might be a different area of the room, might be different speakers being used. And you can also do it for the stereo output as well. So these 3 would be stored in the unit. But like we said, it will be dumped. You can't just dump one channel and keep the other ones. So going back to the measurement, it has a volume adjustment measurement, and that's a specific tone, and you'll notice that it sounds twice. And then it has a distant measurement, which is that clicking sound, and that as well sounds twice. And then the sound field measurement, which sweeps through the frequency, that does that 3 times. So when the measurement is set, then the filters are set. And if you need to, you can redo that if the room changes. Maybe you do it when the room is empty, but now the room is full. You have to redo that. So now we move on to the auto mute switch. And automatic mute function attenuates the signal input to the stereo 1 through 3 by detecting signal input to the input side. So auto mute is also called a ducker. This function helps to have paging announcements heard over any background music, and you can initiate that. You could use the rear-mounted auto mute switch to set the auto mute function. So shifting the auto mute switch to the on position turns this function on. If you turn it off, it'll turn it off. So if you notice that the level of the input on the stereo input is level, but then when we have a page, for example, it ducks it down 30 dB, and the page then is heard, and then when you have an end of the page, within 2 seconds it ramps back up to the original level that we had. We also have auto clip guard function. This is a function that automatically controls input sensitivity to an appropriate value when the broadcast is distorted by too much noise or excessive signal input. For example, the ACG functions prevents the broadcast from being made with the sound distorted, even if a line level signal is erroneously applied to the mono input, which was set at mic. So the auto clip guard function operates on each channel with the input sensitivity selection switch, whether we place it on mic, phantom power, or whatever our setting is. So let's look at some applications. With the one-touch operation, the M-633D, with its built-in DSP processor, is good for the acoustics of a meeting room. And that's because you can control that sound field. What's more, it instantly and automatically suppresses feedback that can interrupt the smooth flow of that meeting. All settings are made on the rear and on the front of the panel. You don't need a PC to set it up. And you can use microphones. You can use line level input. And in this case, if you look at the speakers that we're using, we have some TOA Type H line array speakers, some wireless input, and some boundary microphones. You could also have a PC audio player, putting in some background music. And so this is able to control the room, and you have a pleasant meeting then. Going on to a gymnasium. Now our M633 automatically sets the resonance control for clear advantage. And that's important because gymnasiums are very reverberant and oftentimes very difficult to get a satisfactory sound in a gym. So the one-touch operation automatically measures this sound, corrects for the resonance phenomena, and also prevents any reduction in sound clarity. Greatly improves speech intelligibility and music reproduction in this type of space. Again, like we mentioned, all connections are made on the unit. If you notice, we're using the, in one case, the SRT5 line array speaker system, able to disperse the sound from one end of the gym all the way to the other. And they have an impact-resistant construction. We also, in this case, are using our HX5 and subwoofers. And we're looking at wireless microphones. And this is an ideal setup for a gymnasium, able to accomplish adequate sound and improve the sound quality with very minimal equipment. Houses of worship also are very difficult sometimes to control sound, and the M633D brings a clear advantage to a church or a house of worship. With the one-button operation, it measures the acoustics of the facility and corrects the sound field to provide excellent speech clarity and uniformly distributed sound. What's more, it automatically squelches annoying feedback. We're using the M633 with TOA's condenser microphones and our SRH line array speakers. And so that provides uniform sound and can contain any reverberant atmosphere. And so we have a clearer, more comfortable acoustical environment to present information. Again, looking at a meeting room, this is a basic meeting room, and sometimes our microphones are moved around. Maybe they're wireless microphones being passed among the audience. Sometimes it's wired microphones. And we need to be able to control feedback and suppress any unwanted sounds that are taking place. So all the settings, again, are contained in the M633D, and we're able to control the sound and be able to provide a meeting that everyone can hear, and it's comfortable, natural, acoustical sound. So where do we find more information on the M633D? Well, our website has a variety of information. We have brochures, cut sheets, specification sheets, and product manuals available for download. As well, you can contact your RSM, and each of the RSMs can highlight some of the features and benefits of the M-633D.